Hey guys, welcome to the definitive ranking of The Legend of Zelda Four Swords Adventures for the Nintendo GameCube. Not to be confused with Four Swords Anniversary Edition, which we previously ranked back in, that was a long time ago actually.
Yeah.
I think we purposely spaced these ones out.
Yeah, because they get compared, but there's some differences. We'll probably talk about both, but...
Yeah, so this is a unique one, this game, because of the way you can play it.
Mm-hmm.
So, my history with this game is I didn't play this when it came out.
Me either.
I did not play this until, maybe 6-7 years after release. I think it was 2010 or 11 or so.
Okay.
And I played through it all the way single player.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't touched it single player since. And then over the last decade, I've been playing pieces of it, levels of it, multiplayer every year. I would play 3, 4, 5 levels at the Zelda Dungeon Marathon.
Yeah.
And so I've experienced this two totally different ways. And then for this ranking video, I played through the game in its entirety.
Single player.
And we did a few multiplayer levels, and we did all the extra stuff.
Yes. So I probably played it a little bit before you, I think. I played it in 2009, and I played it a little bit single player, but then I started over and played through the whole game with a friend that I went to college with. So we had, each of us had 2 links, and that was my experience. And then the marathon, similar to you, in little chunks. Mm-hmm. And that's basically it. I played it again this year at the marathon, and then a little bit with you. But I've never sat and played the whole game by myself, single player.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if I would want to, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, this is a unique one. I feel like this game has a bit of an identity crisis. That's
your thesis.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really do.
All right. We can explore that. Huh?
Yeah. So let's jump into the specifics here, and let's talk about the world of Four Swords Adventures.
I've always felt like for a few different aspects of this game where I think it's fine. I think it's kind of mostly a greatest hits sort of of all the elements of Zelda, where they kind of have the structure of the style of A Link to the Past, Four Swords / Minish Cap, but then they throw in stuff from pretty much every game that's existed, and it's to really facilitate. It's kind of I think of it as sort of a party game. And so, it's not aesthetically, it's not groundbreaking in any way, but it's really just you're not really thinking about it while you're just playing a Zelda game with your friends. So to me, it's a 2 in the sense of it's okay, it gets the job done. You know what I mean?
Okay. I definitely like the different environments.
Okay.
There's an ice level. They've got all the elemental pieces. I think
they've got Gorons.
A lot of it is, I think, just throwing a bunch of paint colors against the wall and just see what happens, kind of thing. And some of it doesn't blend, and
right, yeah, it's
exactly all over the place. And I'll get into this a little bit with the story too.
Okay.
Some of it I don't even comprehend. I don't there's entire character races that are exclusive to this game as well.
That is one thing I was going to bring up. Is I said it's greatest hits, and I don't think it brings much to the table. But then there are
the Zuna,
what else is there? There's just there's bits of lore you see the Knights of Hyrule, which you never really see. Anything presented like that at all in other Zelda games. So,
right.
It's got a little bit of new stuff, but it I don't know. It's not really anything I like.
Yeah. And it obviously suffers from the fact that it's levels. It's not a cohesive overworld map.
Yeah.
There is an overworld map, but it's it's a Super Mario World kind of just pick your level and you're suddenly in a ice level or something.
Again, that's more to just facilitate the gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, not that wasn't something I necessarily marked off against. If they were separated like that, but they were really new and exciting, I would still give it a good score. It's more just that it's I think I said this about Four Swords, where it's there's the Zelda stuff.
Right.
And like you said, it doesn't. It's not cohesive. It doesn't have its own identity.
Right. Yeah. I don't really like. The only reason I didn't give it a 1 is that there's a decent amount of diversity. So
sure, yeah.
I liked the different worlds and the different elements, and there were some of the side-scrolling levels and some of the.
It's not. It's also. It's just not it's not atrocious to look at.
Yeah.
Or anything. Well, I guess that's more the art style.
Yeah. Let's talk about the art style. I gave it a 2, and this is one that I probably could have gone a little higher, maybe, because there's nothing like egregiously bad about it or anything.
I feel pretty much the same way, where it just doesn't have its own identity. It's a kind of a mishmash. I said that a little bit about, so there were certain things in like Minish Cap where it was like they had the moblins from Wind Waker and it looked off. In this they have like the bosses from Wind Waker and stuff, and like it just feels like they kind of cram these things in. It doesn't really have like a style that I can really get into, you know what I mean? Like,
right. It's kind of like a mishmash of Minish Cap and A Link to the Past, it seems.
Yeah.
There are some unique designs. There's like you see some of the original Legend of Zelda enemies in here, like the Dongos are in here, Gomas are in here.
That's true. You know what some of it looks like to me though? Some of it looks like you've ever seen like when people play games like the Oracles or something on an emulator and they do the like pixel smoothing mode.
Okay.
Where it like takes away like the pixels and it like makes things like weird shaped, and that's like how some stuff looks, where it's like they made it smooth, and I don't know, like some people say like, how could you say it's not great if you say like A Link to the Past looks great? And I don't think they look, even though it does use pretty much a lot of A Link to the Past like sprites and stuff like that, I don't think it, just on a technical level, how it looks, it doesn't look good to me. It looks.
I don't get an A Link to the Past vibe looking at this, even though it looks like A Link to the Past.
Yeah, it has like straight up things taken exactly out of it, and no, it doesn't. Yeah,
I don't know if this is a game issue or whatever, but I feel like in certain levels, in a lot of the darker levels, I feel like there's like lighting problems in this game.
Yeah, I was wondering when we were playing we played like Pyramid, right? And I feel like we could not see, and I was wondering if that was just...
Is it like a gameplay element? Like, let's make it so, they have to really look. Like, come on.
Because we're like, yeah.
Yeah.
The lighting was weird. I thought, like, is this a TV issue? But
I don't think so. Okay. I've never experienced that on that, like, I was looking at the settings afterwards. I'm like, is there a brightness? Like is there something wrong? Because it looks perfectly fine when you're, yeah.
It's another one where I couldn't go totally 1 because it doesn't look bad to look at, but it is, for me, it's one of my least favorite looking Zelda games.
Okay. It's worth noting that the staff actually liked the art style. And that's the 3 points. That was one of the highest that they gave.
Wow.
So, by the way, this is probably like all over the place. There's some categories in the staff that we'll see that are in the 1s.
Wow.
And some of them that are almost hitting 4s. So it's like
okay,
a bit of a variety as well as the community.
No kidding.
But let's jump into the storyline, and I hinted at this already, and I give it a solid 1.
Okay.
Because it's so it's like you're like, you remember when you're in high school and you take your gum and you put it underneath the desk.
Okay.
And
I like this.
If somebody
analogy.
there's like 12 pieces of gum and they're sticking to each other.
Okay.
That's the storyline of Four Swords Adventures. There all these pieces that don't fit, but they've been stuck together.
I do agree, but I feel like it's similar to what I was saying about the other stuff, where I feel like it's just to kind of like facilitate things, like keep the ball moving. Like, you got this maiden, hey, this knight, he's over here in the whatever world, you go over here. And I mean, you could, that's why I gave it a 2, because it's like you could have both, where you have kind of a party game that you're playing with your friends and progressing the story, and the story could be good, but I feel like it's more of just like a mechanism to just, here's a level, you know what I mean? I don't feel like it's really thought out.
Like, what are you doing in this game?
You're beating the levels and you're getting the force gems and throwing your friends off the platforms, I
mean, the whole game starts by removing the Four Sword from the pedestal, which frees the Wind Mage.
That was like a plot from Shadow Link, right?
Like, why did we do that? Like,
I forget.
There's some reason to that. That one's actually probably logical, but I mean, like, nothing about this. Like, I don't feel like, you know, Vate's in it, Ganon is in it. Neither of them are present throughout the entire game, more or less. You fight Shadow Link 75 times. Is he even a character?
He is a real stinker. Yeah.
I mean, there's
There's
like
the maidens and the knights.
But like, what are they?
I don't know. I'm mashing whenever that happens. So.
I read all the text and I went into all the houses. Like when you're in the village of the Blue Maiden, or you're in the Gerudo, whatever, or the Zuna. Like I'm like read, because I was trying to, you know, soak in some of this, and it's just not. It's cohesive.
Okay.
It's just random facts sometimes. Like, I mean,
sure.
It's like, oh, this is how the trident was made. Like, these people, like, okay, that's cool, little pieces of lore, but
it's good for. I think it's probably good for people who, well, if people would, you know, like timeline theorize anymore, it was good for them back in the day, where it was like, ooh, the trident, we learned about this and that, but yeah, it doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
It's not one I ever connect to, but again, the story for me more is like, oh, I lit you on fire and threw you in a hole, and you know, stuff like that.
Do you know offhand if you've given any games a 1 out of 5 for story?
I don't think so.
Because I'm curious to know if you did.
I don't think I would.
Okay.
Unless there's something that I just thought was like awful. But for me, it would have to be like literally something that's like unbearable.
Okay.
Like
I see.
Yeah, where it's like, where somehow it caused me to not even want to play. And usually, again, with
it's
this,
hard to do that with us. Yeah.
Yeah, if the game's fun enough, which most Zelda games are.
Okay.
You know, thinking about like some of the ones at the bottom of my list, like Four Swords or whatever, where it's like the gameplay was bad and I didn't like the story, I probably gave it a 2. But like that would be one where it's like I don't feel compelled to keep going. But
okay.
This one, I've never had that problem.
Yeah, so. I think our criteria for what makes a 1 is a little different between you and I.
Yeah, yours is always like something's got to be the worst and something's got to be the best.
Yeah,
and I'm more like this. Always means this to me. So two to me is always it's okay, you know. And so 1, it has to be really bad to be a 1.
So speaking of really bad.
Okay,
let's talk about the
we differ here big time.
Yeah, we do actually. The pacing and progression of this game. Like, do you feel? I don't feel that this game really has much of a difficulty progression at all. Actually.
No. It's kind of random. Like some levels are like weirdly challenging.
Yeah,
it'll be something stupid too, you know.
There are levels in World 8-1 is no harder than 1-2.
Yeah,
like there's no from an enemy perspective, there's no real progression of enemies.
No,
in this
totally,
game.
Yeah.
There is no, there is not really a progression of puzzle solving either, or a duration of levels either.
Yeah.
The later levels are not longer than the middle levels.
Right.
Some of the levels, one of the most iconic ones would be like the Village of the Blue Maiden, where it's a scavenger hunt. You got to do a bazillion things to progress, and that's like a 45-minute level or something. There's like a similar level, I think it's called the Dark World, where you have to find a bazillion things to progress. But like there is no progression. In this, where the progression is incredibly linear in the sense of you have to do the levels in an order. There is no wavering from that. But there is no difficulty. I think differences between the end of the game, middle game, and early game, or
there's not really like an arc in like or progression in like the story really like we talked about either, where you just kind of
it doesn't exist. Really, like they could have made this game with all 24 levels unlocked at the very beginning.
Yeah, that's sort of like where I was thinking with it is like I think it's decent where it's like they're like I don't think of it as like I I mean, I did play it through chronologically with a friend, but I more think of it now as like something that you can just drop into and play a few levels at the marathon. And it's to me, thinking about it like that is like the progression is more like thinking about the pacing of like Super Smash Brothers or whatever, where it's like I'm just here playing a level, you know. But then it's like, well, like you said, why is this a narrative story going forward? You know, if they did do something where it was a game that built up the challenges more and more, I'd probably go higher. But for me, how it is, it kind of just works. And it was similar when I played with my friend. We weren't really also thinking about the story. It was more like one night after school, pop in, play like 2 or 3 levels together, you know.
Okay.
And it was just like, it was more a passive activity. Like we're just kind of playing, you have a beer or something, you know, relax.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess I do agree with you. It's just how egregious I think that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of just not important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, it's more to, it just facilitates like the playing of the game. And it's fine. It's fun. But the game, I mean, we'll keep talking about it, but like the game itself isn't really that fun either. So it's kind of a wash in the end, you know what I mean?
Well, it gets down to the point, like, is this game a fun game to play? And I think that comes down to the gameplay.
Let's talk about the gameplay, yeah.
It like, because that's like the core principle of this.
And so that's what because that's, to me, the tying into it, it's like, I gave it a 3 because it's like, yeah, it's fun. It's fun to play a few levels here and there. It's not the most fun time ever, but I think when we do it every year, I'm always looking forward to it. But it's, you know, it's not one that I want to. It's not a game I want to play for like hours and hours. Which some of the best party video games, you kind of have like that sense where you just want to keep playing. You just want to keep playing.
So this is where earlier I said that I feel this game has a bit of an identity crisis.
Oh yeah,
and this is where I feel it comes in. It's all about the gameplay, because this game is a multiplayer game. But I feel like they learned from Four Swords, the original, you know, Four Swords, that we probably need to make this a single-player game just so that more people can actually experience it. So I feel it's like they turned a multiplayer game into a single-player, and it's kind of like it's somewhere in the middle.
Yes,
and it doesn't satisfy, I think, either of those two like markets really. I don't think it's a good single-player game because it's sometimes some of the puzzles are incredibly weird and just like there's some. I think it was like World 8-2 or something. There's like or this might be the last level, 8-3 I was playing, where you got to get 4 of those moon pearls. You got to go underground to 4 areas and step on 4 different switches. It's one of the last levels, but it's like one of those puzzles that if you were doing this with 4 people, it's like, all right, guys, everybody go step on their switch, and you just do it. And it takes everybody 45 seconds to get their switch. You as one player, it's, let me get red.
Hey.
Move over here. Okay, change the green, change the blue, and it's just kind of tedious. And there's a bunch of those segments in the single player that where you have to do that, and it's just kind of like, okay, this is a little bit annoying. And really, it makes you want to be like, I wish I had 3 other friends to play with. But if you have 3 other friends to play with, then there is just so much of that aggravation sometimes of some of these levels are incredibly linear.
Yeah.
There is no roaming.
We gotta keep going.
Guys, let's go to the left. Gooey, leave that force gem alone. Let's go. Like,
right.
Come on. We already have 6,000 of them. And
yeah,
that's okay for one level because there's that competition factor. Like when you're playing this game with 4 people, you could play it competitively. Like who's gonna win? Who's gonna get the most force gems? I think that works for a small amount of time, and it really is dependent on what level you are playing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work with most of the game. I think most people, after they play 2 levels,
that's what I was gonna say. Like that's pretty fun to pop in for like 2 levels, which is why that gets me a 3. Whereas, as opposed to like, I feel like a good game you'd want to be like, come on, let's do some more, like just one more round, guys. But this does not have that.
So like I just think it's not a good single player game. I don't think it's a good multiplayer game either.
You also mentioned like it misses out on in Four Swords. There are certain very specific like things you need two people for, at least like enemies that you have to kill with coordination, which you can't do. You just could never do here, even with like where you make the shapes, because they require very specific coordination. When
I think of the gameplay, in particular the combat of Four Swords, some of those favorite enemies, it's like you grab one enemy from the left side, I grab him from the right side, and we pull him apart and we pull his shell off, and then he's vulnerable. Or there's the other enemy where you have to pick him up and I throw him towards you and he starts flying, and then
just can't do that with this, right? And it is because they want it so you could do it single player, no matter what. So they have to change much.
Yeah, and all the puzzles that are multiplayer, there are a few where it's like you step on a switch that causes blocks to disappear so that somebody else can shoot an arrow past the blocks. There's some puzzles like that, those are okay. But a lot of it is, there's a lot of waiting around sometimes with these puzzles and with the gameplay, where three people are just waiting for player 4 to get to his switch or get to the door or get to whatever.
I don't know. Should they? I mean, what should they? Should they have just made a multiplayer game?
They should have. I feel like if they would have just gone all in on the multiplayer, great, and then make almost a separate mission,
separate mode,
yeah,
or like just like a smaller story, and then you actually have like things built around the cooperative.
They were too ambitious by making a multiplayer and single player game in one.
And I think they pulled it off, but to me what they pulled off is it just makes it kind of bland. You know, it's fun enough to play for a little bit, but and I don't know, I think I probably still went higher because I don't think it's worse than Four Swords, because I hated how it felt playing Four Swords. We felt like slow, and I felt like I was trudging through molasses playing that game. Whereas in this, like, I at least feel like when I'm playing it, like, well, like the controls feel all right. It feels decent.
You know, the base game of Four Swords is also all of about 75 minutes, where the base game of this game is about 15 hours, I would say. Maybe not quite that, maybe 12 hours.
Right.
But it's like, this is a very, very long game.
Well, because they sold it as a full price GameCube game, right? So it's got to feel like no one's gonna want to buy this if it's just, if like they can only play it single player. They wouldn't want to buy it if it only had a 1 hour single player mode and this much. You know, they want the full thing. They want to be able to experience it all themselves, probably.
And this is probably the point where it's worth mentioning as well. It is incredibly complicated to play this game multiplayer.
Yeah, they didn't get rid of the actually difficult part of Four Swords. Like, so they didn't fully learn their lesson.
Oh, like the
amount of components required.
No, it's actually significantly harder.
What I feel like the actual proper thing to do would have been make the game easy to get as many people to play, but make it more of it required to have more people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so at least if you had a friend with 2 GameCube controllers, you could play, you know? Right. And not all the setups and the other consoles or the handheld console and stuff like that.
I feel like they could have made this game with 4 GameCube controllers. Yeah. And no Game Boy Advances at all. Yeah. And I feel like I agree. Yeah, you could have done either a picture-in-picture kind of thing if they wanted to do something similar, or just made some tweaks to the game that didn't require. Because when you're playing on the actual Game Boy Advance, it's 90% of the game is on the big screen. Only 10% of the game is on the little screen, and a lot of times it's just negligible stuff. You're in a house talking to a guy, getting something, and then leaving.
It's kind of a neat gimmick. Like, it's like, oh, nice, I'm in here, but it rarely feels like I'm really glad this feature exists, you know.
And when we play this at the Zelda Dungeon Marathon, we have the most obnoxious setup possible, where we actually use 5 GameCubes, or 4 GameCubes in a week. But I
tried not to factor that in. But
so when we play when we're doing the Game Boy Advance we're actually still looking at a TV, so it looks good.
Yeah.
When you're looking at a Game Boy Advance SP, like sometimes especially if an older model, like the lighting is like you're squinting a little bit. It's just not fun to look at compared to the TV.
It's also like sometimes it's like to read text you gotta look down, or sometimes it's on the screen for everyone to read, and it's like sometimes I'm like, where do I look? It's a little frustrating.
Yeah. Okay. There are a few good things about the gameplay though. When playing single player mode, I like lining up in the 2x2 formation sometimes, and it's really rewarding when you're killing like 15 enemies in a row and it's got that counter going up.
The formations are kind of fun. Like I said, they could have probably still done something fun with that, but whatever.
And like so there is a reason I didn't give it a 1. And it actually gets to this next one.
Wow.
The items and abilities.
Okay.
Are, I think, the best aspect of this game. That's what makes that saves the gameplay from being a 1. I like. I still think they could have done even more with this, but I like the different inventory items you can get. They have a variety. You get the slingshot, the bow and arrow, and the bombs and the lantern. But then you get there's the Pegasus boots, and you can get a lot of these items. You can get them upgraded too by the fairy fountains.
Yeah.
And some of them give you abilities that are kind of cool. I like you can upgrade the Pegasus boots, and it allows you to not only dash,
but over gaps and stuff.
Dash over holes, and you can change direction midway. I like the variety of items that they have. I love, the Rock's Feather is a fun item to play with. I like that. You can have Rock's, like one person can have Rock's Feather, and then you're gonna need them to help you over the gap.
Yeah, so that is like an actual good multiplayer puzzle aspect.
There are a few puzzle aspects in this game where it requires actually I think there are 0, but where it requires multiple items because you can do them all single player, and in single player you can only hold one item at a time, which is I think a flaw.
That's actually what kind of had me marked against is like, I think they're good, like the selection you get, but it's sometimes silly sometimes where it's like, oh, now I need this item, I gotta go find where it's dropped off, and with more people that can be better. With one person it's
you can do it. You only ever need one item at a time. It'd be nice if there was puzzles that required more than one item.
Yeah.
But when you have multiplayer and you can hold 2 items, it just makes certain things more efficient because you don't have to backtrack for items and whatnot.
Yeah, there's none that require multiple, but there are puzzles that require, like, I jump over here and then do this so you can progress. That's more of, in single player, you switch your guy, but... Yeah. So that's kind of a fun puzzle, but yeah, I think they could have done more with it, like tying into, the other stuff about it being in between, Sometimes it's frustrating having to switch.
Okay.
Like in single player, maybe it would have been better if you could just pick up the item and keep it for the rest of the level.
Yeah, almost like a Zelda game.
Yeah.
You get an item and it's yours,
Right.
Wow, what an idea.
What an idea.
And we talked about the formations, and that's sort of the gimmick of the game. Yeah, those are fun. And that's like the ability,
It's fun to swap around between them and stuff.
I like lining up 4 in a row with the Pegasus boots and charging.
Yeah. It's actually more fun than like doing it in Minish Cap where you have that limited window.
Right.
I like you're like, for this boss, I'm just going diamond mode.
Never used diamond mode.
No, I love diamond mode.
Okay. All right.
You're a wall then. Yeah. You can back to back. No one can get you.
I'm a 2x2 kind of guy.
2x2. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
All right. Let's talk about the dungeons here.
Yeah.
What do you consider the dungeons? I consider those like the indoor like temples or labyrinths.
There are those which. This is the thing, people all the time are like, are you going to cover this on my Gooey's Dungeon Dive series? Are you going to cover this game? And I'm like, no, because there's not really the dungeons, and then it's like, well, there's pyramid and there's this, but they're indistinguishable from the levels. Like they're laid out the same format,
I actually slightly disagree, but only slightly.
Okay.
Because I do feel a lot of the dungeons are even more linear than the open outdoor areas.
Oh, okay.
Where
that's worse.
Yes, actually, it is. Where they're more, where do you have to go kind of things. So some of the and now this is not consistent because some of the overworld levels are not like this either. But they're, in general, I would say most of the overworld, especially earlier in the game, you're just going from screen A to B to C to D to E, then you beat the level. And the dungeons are a lot more of back and forth.
Yeah.
And you sometimes you're going left 2 screens, you got to get whatever those moon pearl thing, like whatever balls, bring it back 2 screens, go underground, and then this goes back to the gameplay of all right guys, come on, we got to go this way.
But it's never like you're figuring out a dungeon, you know what I mean?
Yeah, very rarely are you. There are some things like where you don't know what you have to do, where there's an order of operations you have to do, and it's not abundantly clear right away, and you're gonna have to go from room to room to room to figure it out. That doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. But I feel that it's just I just think that the what I consider the dungeons, sort of like the indoor, the temples, as I think the various levels, I think they literally call them temples. They're just a little bit more linear.
Okay.
Not even linear. It's not the right word. Where it's like, it's a lot more of, you need the cooperation of all 4 people to follow you along. In those cases, they're a lot more fun single player than multiplayer, because then it's just less annoying. But that's not necessarily a problem. In general, most of the overworld levels are not like that, but some of them are as well. So either way,
my 2, I'm interpreting it more like we did Age of Calamity, where it's like I'm just thinking the levels, like not just the ones that resemble dungeons, but I was just thinking about all the levels in general. And it's, again, they're fine. There's some pretty bad ones that I hate. There's a few fun ones, that really stand above. But overall, when I think about the experience of playing it, I think about having fun in it, playing it with people for a little bit at a time.
Okay.
And I guess in the dungeon specifically, or whatever they sometimes facilitate like really fun moments, like not even that, there's like the keys in the dungeons, or the stuff you carry. I think about like fighting over that stuff with people, just some of the goofier moments that can come about. But yeah, overall, it's okay. It's not great.
Let's talk about the enemies.
Yeah.
The enemies and bosses. And, I went back and forth with this. I think I originally had this at a 2, and then I was even thinking like a 1 at one point. Then I'm like,
wow.
Like, I like the...
It's a greatest hits game.
Well, I specifically like the multiplayer aspect of some of the enemies.
Yes.
So, like some of the enemies that come to mind are, I think there's like the Manhandler.
Manhandler is the best one, I think.
With the 4 colors.
Came to my mind. Yeah.
Where it's like, that's tailor-made for a game like this. Or I think there were similar kind of enemies in 4 Swords. There's also, is it like an Argus with the rocks or something? The stone Argus or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Where it had a similar with
and
the colors.
Throws the different colors, yeah.
There's also the, this is only in multiplayer mode. It's a little different in single player mode, but the, like Phantom Ganon with throws colored orbs in the tennis game, where the specific I like the specific colors have to cooperate to work together. Sometimes it leads to frustration, but I like...
It can take forever sometimes, yeah.
I like those enemies. I feel there's probably not enough of them.
Yeah. And they, after a while, the ones that do that, they're kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, Argus or Phantom Ganon are both throwing out projectiles at you that are colored,
Yeah.
They don't have anything necessarily that's like those enemies we mentioned in 4 Swords, where it's like one person does this and one person does this. It's like you're both doing the same thing. It's just, okay, now you, taking turns,
Right. And I do feel that there's both, this might be a weird statement, but there's both like a variety of enemies and bosses in this game, but also like in extraordinary amount of repetitiveness with
That's
them.
just because there's so much levels. Yeah.
Like you're in the first level and there's soldiers, and then there's more soldiers in level 8, like 20. Like there's no progression of enemies, and you fight Shadow Link like 40 times. Like
yeah.
And even the Manhandle, you fight him I think 4 times or something. But some of the unique bosses I think are okay. I like fighting. Is it the Helmar King? Like that one?
Yeah, that one actually, and I think that one actually translated pretty good.
It's like a standout. You throw the bombs, then his head goes into the like those indoor areas, where then you got him with the hammer. That's a good multiplayer.
Yeah, that's true. That one you can actually. It would be better to have more people and stuff too. Yeah, you've got the Jalhala's in there, right? Isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, that's with the you have to light the 4 torches.
Yeah, so they're like it's greatest hits. They've really squeezed a lot into there. But yeah, it doesn't always necessarily fit either. But yeah, I do totally agree where it's like there is a lot. They got a lot in there, but just due to the nature of how long it is, like it's repetitive. And again, that's why I think it works better as a game you play in small bits.
You're right.
But that's maybe not a good thing for the overall game.
So let's talk about the side content and extras. We diversify in this one here a little bit.
Yeah, well, I had my eyes opened.
We did.
So and I think the staff needs to open their eyes a little bit, too.
Open your eyes. We did the Shadow Battle.
Yeah, which is pretty fun. It's kind of like a battle mode. Like Mario Kart style.
And we had a lot of fun, I think, playing the two of us.
Even just 2-player.
I think we both kind of acknowledged that it would be even more fun if it was 4-player, though.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
There were some of those. It was like almost like a tag. We were playing tag, and it just took forever to get around.
Yeah.
Like okay, this is like, you ever play tag with one friend when you were a kid, and one of you is much faster than the other, so it was like, what are we doing?
Well, that's not just the shadow battles. You're talking about the Tingle Tower.
Well, then there's the Tingle Tower. Those were, I think some of those were a lot of fun.
Some were really great, yeah.
There was like the digging game, or there was... what were some of the good ones?
Whack-A-Mole was a good one.
Yes. They just show up and you dig them out or something, and then some of them were color coordinated.
Yeah. And then they kind of, at the end, they like know if you hit the other person's color, and they like penalize you. Like, it's so crappy, but it was kind of funny.
But then some of those Tingle mini games were just like enemy gauntlets kind of thing.
Enemy gauntlet. There was one that was like bonus level, and it was just like a half-baked level. It was not very good. And
it's like one of those things, sort of what I was just saying with the enemy. Like, we've seen this plenty. We don't need more of this. Give me Whack-A-Mole. Like,
it didn't feel like this was something they even resuscitated from the cutting room floor and were like, let's put it here. It just felt like, why is this here? I don't know.
Yeah. This is something that was like a pleasant surprise a little bit, because like we kind of overlooked it in the past.
Yeah.
So it was okay.
To me, it adds slightly more value to the game in terms of like what you're doing. Like, I could totally see now this being an okay game to play. You play like 2 levels with your friends, and then now, okay, let's play that Whack-A-Mole game a few times. You know what I mean?
So I thought like half of the side game, the Tingle Tower and the Shadow Battle, like half of them were okay, and the other half were not good.
Yeah, I agree.
But then there's more to side content like than that, and it's like some in the main game.
Okay.
Very often, there's like areas you get sidetracked a little bit, or there's like a room, and what's in it? It's just an enemy that gives you 100 force gems for killing it.
Yeah, and you're rarely starved for force gems.
No, and like it's like one of those things that's like a lack of carrying things over from level to level makes any reward you get in a particular level not as, why am I going way out of my way to get this heart container?
Yeah,
because how often do you like need? It's like you got a bazillion fairies anyway. Like,
I mean, yeah, you do die a lot, but yeah,
you do die a lot more in multiplayer than if you're playing with 4 people.
I think the heart containers are nice in multiplayer because you get one, and you're thinking about like how you want to beat your friends, and it like makes me like feel a little bit more relieved, because when you die and all your force gems pop out,
oh god,
and people start picking up your force gems, you're like, ah. But if you have like a heart, like if you end up getting like extra heart containers, you're like, all right, let's get some dying going on, because you're a little bit more insulated.
Yeah, I really wish some of those extras inside kind of like previous Zelda games would, if it just carried over from.
Sure, it could have collectibles and stuff like that.
And carry over from level to level. Maybe you don't need. And this goes along the way with what I said earlier about the pacing and progression. There is no start with 3 heart containers, but then the later levels are harder, so you have 8 heart containers. Like there is none of that.
You could have a mode where like you build your characters up almost.
Yeah.
It could be a lot more well conceived. Or I think if you could even just have Mario style. I think of like, I don't know, like New Super Mario Brothers or whatever. They have every level has 3 big coins you got to collect, and if you get those, you can cash them in to unlock more levels later on that are harder. Like why not? Zelda has collectibles. You could put there's 3 Skulltulas in every level. You got to find. They did that in Hyrule Warriors actually.
Right.
They could have stuff like that. I think I was a bit dazzled by the whack-a-mole and
the one game.
The horse riding the horses. Yeah. Oh, especially in shadow battles when you get the horse and you just start wailing on the other person.
Well, we were playing a game where we were trying to get each other, and I think I was in the underground and you were in the
I just kept going through the door.
Every time I went up, you went through the door, and there's like that 3-second like lag, and we were just going like this, just waiting. Oh. This reminded me of when I think it's like a game of tag, right?
Yeah.
And the guy who's goes faster. When you're kids and you're playing tag against somebody who's faster, you know what, like, but this was like a loophole.
I exploited it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the music and the sound. And I actually gave this a low score. I gave it a 2, but this is I think I've mentioned this before, where like everything is always like relative to the other games, at least for me. And like a lot of the songs in this game are from A Link to the Past.
Yeah, it's the greatest hits,
which is arguably my favorite soundtrack, or one of them. And yet still, I feel, and a lot of them are even upgraded a little bit, like at least in terms of the capabilities of the GameCube over the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, but I mentioned this before. I don't think the sample sounds in this really sound that better too. I don't know. For me, it's similar to the art style where it's like it's updated, but it kind of it's lost some of its charm.
And like so, the credits theme of A Link to the Past, not the ending theme, but the actual credits theme when the credits are rolling, that sample is the title screen from Four Swords Adventures. And it's like a weird thing to me, because that credits theme, that variation of the classic Legend of Zelda theme, is one of my favorite songs in A Link to the Past. But then hearing it as the first song in the title screen, it's not as good. It loses its charm. Maybe it has to do with the mood of, I just beat this game and the credits are rolling and I'm just like soaking it in. Yeah, there's some of that, and like there's also some of the songs that I feel like are a little misplaced.
Okay,
I think the Dark World theme plays like in multiple locations. I think you're in Gerudo Valley and the Dark World theme is playing.
Yeah, or I think of like the Death Mountain theme is playing as many locations. Yeah.
So a lot of memorable music, but it just felt like a greatest hits, I guess.
To me, it's more of like, when I'm playing this the way I like I don't even really notice the music. You know what I mean? So it's similar to the art style where it just gets the job done. Like it makes you feel like you're playing Zelda, but yeah, it's not the most inspired soundtrack by any means.
So let's see where this fit in at the end of the day.
Okay, yeah.
So Four Swords Adventures, not totally far off from both Yumi, the staff, and community all have it in the lower third, basically. Staff had it a little higher. Ironically, for both you and I, it tied with Age of Calamity.
Wow, yeah.
And both of us I remember I messaged you. I'm like, hey, you got to tie. What's better, Four Swords Adventures or Age of Calamity?
Yeah.
And I had the same exact dilemma.
Wow.
And
that makes sense to me.
I guess the one point of emphasis I like to make is that the community, the staff, and you all had Four Swords Adventures as a substantially, not so much the community, but the staff and you both had substantially higher than regular Four Swords.
Yeah.
Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, definitely. I did not enjoy a moment, or not a moment, but like most of Four Swords was a trudgery to me. Like I said, just like walking in that game feels bad, and that's one where I think of now thinking of the music, or the music. The music is, I don't know if I gave that a 1, but like that is somehow worse when it's like we have all these Zelda tunes. I would almost have rather an uninspired, like, here, take that tune from here. Like, yeah, just the gameplay of that. I think I like the couple moments of cooperation, but otherwise, like, I just hated walking around in it, like how it felt. This, to me, this is a game that Four Swords, to me, it goes down pretty easy. It's like fun to play in small little bits, you know. It might be in a single sitting as fun as like Four Swords Adventures is, I guess, which is the whole game, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know.
I feel like when we played Four Swords Anniversary Edition, it was that bonus content that kind of just went on for a long time. That kind of almost ruined the experience a little bit. But I do think the base game of Four Swords Anniversary is really good. And I really like it. And I
think it might have been with 4 players or something.
Yeah, we played 2 players. It's maybe it loses some of the charm. I still hold true that, granted, you know, the machine ended up throwing them right next to each other with me. But I firmly believe the Four Swords Anniversary is a much better game. Okay. And I would much rather play that with friends. But you know, the machine says they're basically the same for me. At
the end of the day, it's like they're neither are like great multiplayer games. Like if you're like, I don't
know if I'd agree with that. I think Four Swords Anniversary Edition is a good multiplayer game.
If we had a separate definitive ranking of multiplayer games, where do you think this would fall alongside games like Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers, GoldenEye? You know what I mean? Like, I think compared to all of those games, it's garbage.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it even approaches them in how fun it is. You know.
You know what? If I had 3 friends over and we had 4 players, I think I'd rather play Four Swords Anniversary Edition than Mario Kart. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy on that.
I'd rather play any version of Mario, the worst version of Mario Kart.
Okay. Which one is that, by the way?
I don't know. Like the
one on the
Game
Wii?
Boy. No, the Wii one's sweet.
Super Circuit? The Game Boy?
I don't know if that one's bad. I didn't really play that one.
I like Super Circuit.
Super Mario Kart?
Double Dash?
I like Double Dash.
Okay. I think Double Dash is the lowest. Maybe the Wii version.
All right, we're starting our next series. Welcome to the definitive ranking of Mario Kart.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, that's gonna be a wrap for Four Swords Adventures. But we're not done yet. We still got a few more Zelda games left to go.
We have plenty left.
Yeah, and we'll make some up as we get further.
Yeah.
But so join us for the month of December, and we're gonna look at The Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Ages.
Wow.
So the poll is in the description below. So have your voice be heard. I'm excited about this one because I feel like I'm a Oracle of Ages apologist a little bit.
Is it apologist if it's a thing where like...
I defend it, I think, a lot. I feel like I'm always on the defensive when I talk about Oracle of Ages. But I want to see what the machine actually spits out for me.
I think it'll do well for me too. But I'm guessing it'll be in your top 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
Top 5.
Yeah,
for sure.
We'll see what the machine has to say. But yeah, I'm going to be replaying some Oracle of Ages this month, and you can play along with us, and we will see you in the month of December.